This is the e-bike that pulled me up a loose, nasty gravel climb I usually avoid and kept its line without spinning out. It's the first time I felt confident aiming an e-bike straight at deep sand and just going. It sits at the edge between a high-powered e-bike and a lightweight electric motorcycle. If you want serious hill-crushing torque, real all-terrain traction, and you're okay with extra weight and the responsibility that comes with higher speeds, this is built for you. If you're looking for something light to carry upstairs, or you live where strict e-bike rules are enforced, you'll need to think twice. The design looks aggressive, but what matters day to day is how it's put together. The 24 by 4-inch fat tires lower the center of gravity compared to 26s, and that pays off the moment you nudge past 30 miles per hour. The chassis feels planted rather than twitchy. The big 52V34AH battery sits mid-frame where it doesn't destabilize the bike and it locks in place, which I'll come back to because it matters. There's a lockout fork and a rear shock that's tuned on the firm side. It keeps the bike composed at speed, though it can feel stiff on small chatter. The hydraulic disc brakes have motor cutoffs that kill power the instant you touch the levers, which is critical on a machine with this much pull. The cockpit is straightforward, a bright 3.5-inch display I can read in direct sun, simple controls for single or dual motor, and a thumb throttle that's responsive without being too twitchy, at least until you crank assist to the top levels. The included phone mount with a 5-volt charge port sounds like fluff, but for navigation on long rides, it's actually useful. Setup took me about an hour at an easy pace. It arrives mostly assembled. I still had to align the brakes, torque a handful of fasteners, and true the front rotor. I ditched the included Allen keys and used my own tools because the provided ones felt soft, and I didn't want to strip anything. On one unit I received, the front wheel was slightly bent from shipping. Support responded quickly and sent a replacement. But it's a reminder to check wheels and fenders right away. Also, make sure the battery latches fully. The first time I hit a big pothole, I heard it click up slightly. My fault for not double-checking the lock. Since then, I always tug the pack before riding, and it hasn't moved. The first ride surprised me with how smoothly the power comes on. With both motors engaged, it doesn't just spin up the rear and make a mess of gravel. It pulls from the front and pushes from the back in a controlled way. That all-wheel drive feel is the secret sauce. I can cruise using a single motor to save energy and flip into dual when I see a hill or a patch of loose terrain. Pedal assist is predictable, and the throttle fills in the gaps. I'd call the acceleration immediate and linear up to the mid-30s. From there it keeps building if you have the space. Top speed is real, but I treat anything north of the high 30s as track-only territory. Wind, visibility, and reaction time become part of the equation, and I ride with goggles and a full-face helmet when I plan to go fast. What makes this platform work is the electrical architecture. A 52-volt system means the bike hits hard without drawing excessive current, which keeps heat in check. I've done repeated hill pulls in warm weather, and the motors got hot to the touch, but didn't throttle back. The controllers do a good job syncing torque, so the front wheel doesn't light up under power unless you're on loose pea gravel and punch it from a stop. Braking has been consistent after a proper bed-in. The levers have a solid, progressive feel, and the cutoff gives your brain the "I'm safe" signal as soon as you squeeze. On long downhill runs, I didn't notice fade, but it's still a heavy bike with fat rubber, so you learn to look ahead and modulate. Range depends entirely on how you ride. On a mixed loop, bike paths, neighborhood hills, a stretch of gravel, I use single motor for most of it, at PAS 2 to 3, around 22 to 25 miles per hour, and saw just over 50 miles before I got cautious. When I spent a day doing beach approaches and hill repeats in dual motor mode, throttle heavy, I got into the low 30s. If I keep assist low and contribute real pedaling, 60 to 70 feels achievable. The big number you've seen is doable only at very conservative assist on flat terrain. I charged with the included smart charger overnight. From low, it took me between 7 and 8 hours. I've ridden in steady rain and through shallow puddles, and the pack didn't flinch. The IP67 rating tracks with how uneventful those rides were. I've taken it into a few specific scenarios to see where it shines and where it frustrates. A steep gravel climb near me is the kind that makes normal e-bikes scrabble and stall. With this bike in dual motor PAS 4, it just clawed forward with both wheels contributing. The steering stayed light but controlled, and I could pick lines without fighting fishtail. On deep, dry sand at a river pullout, I dropped tire pressure to around 10 to 12 psi and rolled in. The front motor is the difference between burying the front tire and maintaining momentum. In snow, light powdery stuff in a parking lot, the low center of gravity helped, but I kept speeds conservative because braking distances grow fast on slick surfaces. For commuting, it's overbuilt in a good way if you have elevation and distance. My round trip is 14 miles with a couple of long grades. Running single motor PAS2 on the flats and dual PAS3 on the climbs, I get to work without sweating through a jacket, and I still have plenty in the tank to detour home. The integrated rack is sturdy enough for a pannier and a small bag. It's quiet enough that I can hear traffic, and the headlight is strong for city speeds up to about 25 to 30 miles per hour. Beyond that, I'd add a secondary light for reach. The tail light is bright and reacts predictably under braking, which cars actually respect more than you might expect. The weight is the daily trade-off. At around 87 pounds before accessories, it's no fun to lift, and pushing it up a flight of stairs is not something I want to do again. Walk mode helps when I need to maneuver in a tight garage. The kickstand is burly and holds the bike upright, but I learned not to park on a slope with the front wheel downhill because the mass wants to roll. The frame fits me well at 5'11", and I've had tall friends ride comfortably after adjusting bar height and saddle. The saddle itself is on the firm side. It's fine for 20 to 30 miles, but for longer rides, I swap to something with more support. I've run into a couple of quirks I think buyers should know. The rear fender on one unit contacted the controller box when the suspension compressed hard after an unexpected dip. It scuffed the plastic and started to crack the fender at a mounting point. I fixed it by spacing the fender and adding a small guard over the box. But it's worth checking clearances. Also, during assembly and early rides, I chased a rattle that turned out to be the battery latch not fully seated. Once I got in the habit of clicking and tug testing, it disappeared. Beyond that, I keep an eye on fasteners around the rear dropouts and rack mounts because vibration loosens hardware over time. The drivetrain sees real torque, so I clean and lube the chain monthly, and it's been happier for it. There are a few smart touches that make everyday use smoother. The ability to switch between single and dual motor on the fly means I can stretch range on flat sections and unleash both hubs when I need to. Cruise control sounds silly on a bike until you're on a long, empty path. Then, it's nice to give your thumb a rest. The display is readable in glare and at night without burning my retinas. The motor cutoffs tied to the brakes do exactly what they should, and that builds trust. The battery's weather sealing and the overall wiring layout are cleaner than I expected for this class. I also appreciate the 24-inch wheels more than I thought I would. They keep the bike feeling settled, especially on fast sweepers, where taller wheels sometimes feel a touch vague with fat tires. One more thing I need to say. Check your local rules. The speed potential here pushes past what's allowed in many places. I treat it like a motor vehicle when it comes to gear and situational awareness. Full-face helmet for speed days, eye protection always, gloves, and lights on even in daylight. This is the e-bike I reach for when I want to cover a lot of ground quickly, climb without thinking twice, and ride surfaces I'd normally avoid. It's also the one that demands respect. It's heavy, it asks for regular maintenance, and it needs thoughtful setup to be its best. If you're a rider with hills on your route, if you split time between pavement and dirt, or you want an AWD tool for snow and sand, it delivers a confident, muscular ride that still feels like a bicycle when you want to pedal. If you live upstairs without an elevator, need to lift your bike onto a sedan rack, or you're in an area with tight e-bike restrictions, it's not the right fit. If you found this video helpful, tap subscribe and tell me how you'd set up a dual motor e-bike in the comments. Tire pressures, fender fixes, lighting, I read it all.